Hi, it's me again. So, I just came back from the library. I think in my last video I had mentioned that I have read the first two Mistborn books, but not the third one. But I don't have it because our library doesn't have a lot of English books. So I had tried out the interlibrary loan system that my library has. And I had ordered the third Mistborn book, The Hero of Ages. And it's what I got. So I'm not quite sure what to do because I can only renew this book one more time and the first due date is August 1st. I can renew it once, but basically I'm going to have to be reading The Way of Kings and Mistborn at the same time. So I'm not sure if I'm going to take a break from Way of Kings and read this, or just try to read both at the same time. But I don't think reading both at the same time is a good idea because they're very similar and I might confuse between the two, like what's going on. So I think I might switch to finishing Mistborn, and it's also a lot smaller of a book, so I should be able to finish it faster than Way of Kings. And Way of Kings I can also renew like 3 more times, I think, and each renewal is a month every time. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but I have a feeling I'm probably going to switch to Mistborn for a while. But yeah, so I have Hero of Ages in English finally, so I can finish off Mistborn Era 1 finally and see what happens. Because I really want to know what happens. What is the darkness? Interesting. We live on somewhat of a busy street. So anyways, I will get into Way of Kings. So the past couple days I reread chapter 3 and I ended up reading up to the end of chapter 7. I just finished chapter 7 before filming. Yes. So I'll quickly do a recap of what the plot is in each one. And then this time I have a notebook and I started making notes as I was reading, like questions that I have. And then I thought it would be fun at the end of every chapter I wrote out what my prediction of what is gonna happen next at the end of each chapter. And I'm also seeing that in this book anyways, because I believe it's split into like 4 books. This book focuses on Shallan and Kaladin. Oh, also I will probably mispronounce a lot of the names since they're fantasy names. So I might butcher some of them. But I think this system worked a lot better. I kept a lot of notes, so my memory should be a lot better, and I also read it a lot more recently. The first video, it had been a while, I think, since I had read like the opening chapters, or the opening pages. So chapter 3 is the chapter where we meet Shallan. She comes to the city of Kharbranth, or the city of Bells, and she was on a ship and she is taken up to she makes her way to the Conclave because she wants to meet Jasnah, and it's a bit mysterious of who Jasnah is. I thought it was funny, I had written in my notes, who is Jasnah colon, and then at one point in the book, that is one of the sentences that is said, who is Jasnah colon? And she is a heretic. That's one of those words where I've read it a lot, but I haven't heard it said out loud very often, so I don't actually know where the emphasis is placed on the word, like heretic. I think heretic is right. She is looking for Jasnah, and I believe at the end of chapter 3 she gets to the Conclave and she's about to go in to meet Jasnah, but she hasn't actually met her. And at the end, I said for my prediction was she's going to meet Jasnah. I said she will give her future, like I think she's like a oracle or like a witch of some sort. So some other things from chapter 3 I had said was the city is very multicultural. You have a mix of all the different people from the Roshar world. The world building is fantastic as well. I love reading fantasy because I get to immerse myself in a totally fantastical world that's completely made up. I just get to daydream about all these things that don't actually exist, and Sanderson does a good job at describing what the things look like. Like sky eels, for example. Those are fun. Oh, I also thought it was interesting to note only women read. The men only can read glyphs is what is normal. It's very rare that a man can read, because I think there's a character that can read, and Shallan is a little like taken aback by that. And being dark-eyed and light-eyed is important. I'm getting the feeling that dark-eyed people are like evil and light-eyed people are the good people. And Shallan has light eyes. Religion is very important. Later on, actually at the end of what I just read, we find out that Jasna is an atheist. She's a proclaimed atheist, and that's why she's a heretic. So that's pretty much it for chapter 3. Chapter 4 switches to Kaladin. So yeah, it's a lot. Every chapter is back and forth between the two so far. Chapter 4 starts off, it says the epigraph is of particular note. Don't know what that means. And so it's a Kaladin chapter, and it starts with him talking to the Windspren. And it says that 4 years have passed since he joined Amaram's army, and he was 19 years old when he joined. Amaram sold him, and Kaladin is guilty of a high crime, but we don't know what he did. And I'm also getting the note that Parshmen are going to be very important in the series. They're constantly described as like dumb and slave-like, but I feel there's going to be a Parshman that becomes a major character or something of that sort. And my prediction for the end of this chapter was that Kaladin will be sold back into Amaram's army, and he will regain his luck as a soldier. Oh yeah, and I said for my thoughts that I'm also a bit overwhelmed at times with all the new info, but I mean, it's the beginning of a fantasy series, and a massive fantasy series, so of course there's going to be a lot of info. And someone had said in my last video not to worry about trying to remember everything and, you know, focusing too much on the details. Like, there's no way I'm going to remember every single little thing that happens. So that's it for chapter 4. So then chapter 5, I believe, goes back to Shallan. Goes back to Shallan, yeah. So the plot is that Shallan, she does meet Jasna, and the king who is Jasna's brother, King Taravanian. And so Jasna basically interviews Shallan to see about her becoming a ward, but she is very picky and just doesn't pick wards, it seems like. Like, she rejected the last 12 people that came. And they come across, there's a chunk of stone that has fallen from the castle or whatever the building is, and it's fallen in front of a room, and it's trapping the king's daughter inside. So Jasna has a soul caster, and she uses it to like break apart the stone and turns the stone into smoke. And the daughter ends up being all right, and then she ends up saying that Jasna says that she won't take Shallan on as a ward. And then Shallan reveals that she's going to try to become her ward so that she can eventually steal the soulcaster. So Shallan isn't as innocent as it seems. So my prediction at the end of the chapter is I think Shallan will become a ward. So then, oh yeah, there was a weird thing on my page 94. There's a drawing, and there's a little under a footnote that says, like, it's describing what we're looking at, but it's cut off. I don't know if that's because of my book or if that's intentional. Yeah, if you can see here, it's like cut off. Like, there's another sentence here and it clearly says 1172 at the end, but there's a whole sentence that's like cut off. But it's a library book, it's free, so I'm not gonna complain. in the grand scheme of things, I'm sure it's not that important, and I can also just Google the picture if it's that important. So chapter 6, the chapter goes back to Kaladin, and the war has started from the assassin of the king that happened in the prologue 6 years ago. Yeah, so the assassin that killed the king, Gavilar, I believe. This war has happened because of that killing. And so what happens is Kaladin is bought by a ladyship into the war. He becomes a bridge man, and they charge towards the Parshendi at the Shattered Plains. And eventually he collapses. Like, they're just charging like all day long. He pushes his body way past a reasonable limit in my opinion. And his companion, who I said is Tinkerbell-like, the little Windspren, she says her name is Sylphrena, and she manages to wake him up hours after he has collapsed from sheer exhaustion. So my thoughts and predictions were Kaladin's having a real bad time and it's not gonna get better. So my earlier prediction about him, well, he was lucky in a way because there was he was in the front row at the end and he was the only one that didn't die. So he was lucky in some ways, I guess. And then chapter 7 goes back to Shalyn, and she goes to the Palaneum to catch up with Jasna, and the Palaneum seems like a library to me. The focusing here. While she's waiting for Jasna, she draws. And the way she describes her collecting, like, she finds collecting people more interesting. Like, she describes it some way, and it made me think of the movie Lilo and Stitch, and it makes me think of Lilo when she's taking pictures of all the tourists. Like, that's what it made me think of. And she's drawing and creation spread come about her painting. And while she's waiting, she also makes a letter to give to Jasna, trying to convince her to take her as a ward. And then a new character, Brother Cabsel, he shows up and he talks to Shalyn, and he's what seems like a priest, but not like a normal priest. Like, he's not as reserved as Shalyn is expecting, and it seems that Shalyn, where she's from, is very religious, and they're very respectful towards the religious people, or like the religious, like the priests and the people, I don't know what you call that, the people that are in the church. So then at the end of this chapter, it's revealed that Jasna is an atheist, and Cabsel leaves Shalyn, and Cabsel leaves Shalyn, and then Jasna reappears. She doesn't look impressed. So my prediction is that she saw Cabsel leaving, and she's not happy that Shalyn was talking with Cabsel. Like, Cabsel is a bad person, or, you know, he has a bad reputation or something like that, especially because he's like not your typical priest. Or it could be that because Jasna is an atheist, she's not happy that Shalyn was talking to a priest. It could be that too. So that's all I have read so far. I'm about 120 pages, I think, in, and the book is 1,000 pages, so I'm about 1/10 of the way through. I think for a week, to do a video a week, I think that's a pretty good pace. I might pick it up because I want to read Mistborn now, but we'll see what I end up doing. I might switch to doing videos about Mistborn because it is the last of the trilogy, and everyone says the third book is the best and they rave about it, so I'm excited to start this book. But that's pretty much it. Overall, obviously I'm loving the book. I have no negative things to say about the book. Like, I'm having a good time. I am super glad I got back into reading fantasy. I've been missing out on wonderful stuff like this. And I'm not really sure where the book is going, what the end goal of the book is going to be. there's like 5,000 more pages that I have to read, so there's gonna be a lot of info. So make sure you subscribe so you can see me talk about the next chapters. Also, a huge thank you to the people that watched my first video. I was expecting to get like 5 views. Even 1 view I would have been happy with, but I got so many views on my first video and I got a bunch of subscribers, so I'm very happy that people are interested in this idea. So yeah, we'll see where it takes us. Hopefully Kaladin has a bit of a better time in the next chapters.